Matthew Tkachuk. Probably the biggest savage players will ever have to face, cause this guy just has no shame. Think of him as Marchand Jr. Guy that can chirp while skating circles around you en route to the net before you even see him coming. And just like Marchand, Tkachuk feeds off the hate from his opponent. The more you hate him, well, the better he's going to play. So why is he even at the top of most players' hate lists? Well, that's the question that I'm going to attempt to answer as we look at the top jerk moments in Tkachuk's career thus far. Even if you don't like Tkachuk in the least bit, you at least have to respect the fact that, for once, he's giving Perry a taste of his own medicine. Well, sort of. As Perry is shown held up over at the Flames bench. Why, you ask? Well, instead of him skating off with someone else's stick this time, it was his twig that was lost in the scuffle. And as you probably guessed, our favorite little pest was behind it, as he clearly pops up holding Perry's stick in hand, pretending that he's only holding his own. But the innocent gesture was only an act, as Tkachuk attempted to hide the stick from Perry's sight while making him search for it and receiving a few knuckle sandwiches as icing on the cake. From one pest to the other, I guess.
I don't know. It was in, it was in his gut, and then it was in his pants, and then it was in our bench. And I'm sure he could have handed it back, but if you know the kid, he's not going to hand it back.
As you'll quickly learn, it's not only fellow pests that get the brunt of Tkachuk's antics, but really any available target. And this time, that target was Brent Burns, who just so happened to lose his stick. As Tkachuk skated by, but as coincidental as it may seem, it was no accident, as the forward clutched the stick between his torso and elbow as soon as he knew it was there, and decided to channel his inner klepto by skating to the bench with the extra twig. Of course, as you would expect, this incensed Burns, who skated closely behind in pursuit of his stolen property. But this time, the play was met with retribution, as Tkachuk was dealt an interference call following the play. Rookie mistake, maybe? Like most pests and instigators in the league, Tkachuk isn't immune to a little behind-the-play action. And this time, the lucky victim was Brian Little, who took several cheap shots from yours truly, while in a vulnerable position. Eventually, the officials intervened, as one was shown literally having to pull Tkachuk off of his victim. So it seems like the bench is pretty much Tkachuk's office when it comes to stirring the pot, as yet again he found a way to agitate while off the ice and out of play. While a scrum ensued directly in front of him, Tkachuk wanted to be sure he wasn't left out of the action. Therefore, the forward decided to get creative by jabbing his stick also subtly into Matt Martin. The league end result apparently wasn't too thrilled with the sly spear, as Tkachuk, who was relatively fresh off from a previous suspension, was dealt his second in less than a month, and was made to sit out the following game. As painfully obvious as it is, Tkachuk seemingly enjoys laying on people, and this time the one supporting his weight was Mikko Rantanen. But Tkachuk, being Tkachuk, wasn't satisfied with solely restraining the forward, and decided to jab his arm as hard as possible into Rantanen's neck while pushing his head towards the ice. Once the official took notice, Tkachuk partially body-slammed him yet again and assumed almost a Frozen-like position. Yes, pun intended. Remember that other suspension, like directly before the one in Toronto happened that I referenced? Well, speaking of Calgary's pest, he decided to get a little too enthusiastic for the NHL standards, at least in this game as far as instigating goes. As Tkachuk, during a TV timeout following a fight, decided to confront Luke Wisnowski, who was at the time being escorted to the dressing room by an official. While Wisnowski was off the ice, Tkachuk decided to give him a little love tap on the ankle while he was exiting. This, of course, sparked another brawl between the two benches. And the scapegoat? Well, it was the instigator, of course, as Tkachuk received a 1-game suspension as punishment for sparking the escalation. And I'm sure you all knew this one was coming, as Tkachuk has quickly become the thorn in Drew Doughty's side during his short time in the league thus far. Why, you ask? Well, it's pretty plain and simple. Whenever Doughty's on the ice, Tkachuk isn't far away, and is typically doing anything and everything he can to get under the defenseman's skin. This time, it was an elbow to the face, as he was passing the net. Doughty, in result, could be shown head and hands while tumbling down to the ice. As the blue liner struggled to get to his feet, as you would expect, his teammates came to his aid. And as you also would expect, the action was met with discipline. And this time, player safety upped their game and gave him 2 games to watch from the press box, instead of just 1. For him, the prize was the satisfaction that he rattled Doughty's cage once again.